And I think avoiding dismissing things based on anecdote, because I hear that from all sides of the everybody knows somebody for whom the 12 steps didn't work, or everybody knows somebody for whom SMS didn't work, and there's that kind of, people generalize from those anecdotes.
Of course.
And people's personal experience obviously is so, it's so powerful for them, that it can become, this is the only way. And I think
yeah, absolutely. So I know a small number of people for whom their route out of recovery has been actually becoming marathon runners. But we're not about to suggest that everyone who's in recovery needs to run marathons in order to be recovered or in recovery, as it were. Can
I just say thank goodness for that?
but it's a good example, isn't it? Just because running 26 months, works for a small number of people, we certainly shouldn't anecdotally be prescribing it for everybody, nor could we. It would be bonkers. So why do we do it in other spaces? I guess. Yes.
Exactly. But also, I want to kind of understand the power of personal experience. So when people are making those, kind of judgmental statements about, how one way is better than another way, it comes from deep personal experience. And it might come from very negative experience of one environment and very positive experience of another environment, and that's very, very real for them. But I think that's why it's good to have professionals and academics involved in this field. We need that kind of neutral investigation as well.
It's listening to you. It's not a word I've actually vocalized before, but actually thinking about it, there's actually an awful lot of people, professional and in the peer community, that I could almost use the word that they're actually evangelical about the particular preferred route, aren't they, in a way?
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that until they're talking to you, but we could possibly do with a little less evangelicalism at times, possibly.
Just enabling people to find their own way, and telling, giving people the skills to navigate what's available. There's one reason why I think 12-step facilitation is a good thing, because there are skills necessary to access 12-step, because that language is 1930s language and it's so off-putting. You've got to have a little bit of confidence to go, okay, I'm going to hear this language, but it's okay for me to make my own mind up about it. So to kind of empower people to know that they can do that, I think is really important. And I think that is equally true with other modalities as well.
And when I was a professional, I always said to everyone I ever worked with, do everything at least 2 or 3 times, and not the first time. It's never any good to make a judgment on something just after one visit, one session, one meeting. Be that the psychiatrist or the 12-step meeting, you need to give them a chance. Nothing's going to work if you just instantly reject it, I guess.
And when you remember that, kind of fundamental to recovery is community takes some building. It's not just you have to contribute to community as well as receive it. There's give and take involved in that, and that takes some building. You can't just go to one meeting and say, oh, no.
No, and the other thing I often say to people, and I mean, particularly I think about 12-step and fellowship meetings is, of course, for people to realize that even in except for perhaps some of the more rural areas, but in the locality you're in, there are actually more than one meeting going on, and those meetings actually have different people in them. Sometimes they'll
Yeah.
overlap, and you might go to the first meeting and don't gel with the characters or the individuals in it. You could go to a second meeting and you might just resonate with people, and
Yeah.
they're not all the same is the other thing I try to explain to people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's really important. And increasingly there are meetings, um, like women only meetings or LGBT
yes.
meetings or atheist meetings. So, if you're lucky enough to have access to a city, you've got, all of those kinds, that menu of different options, which I think, for a lot of people, especially at certain points in their recovery, perhaps early in recovery, that can be really important to feel that
Mm.
you are with like-minded people rather than people who are very different. Um, Whereas I think the longer you're in recovery, you realise, kind of similarities with people who you might think you're very different to. Um, so I love women only meetings because I identify as a woman, but and I get something very special from those meetings, but I'm also comfortable in kind of more plural meetings. So, but I can see why it might be absolutely necessary, depending on her particular experience, um, for somebody to go to a woman only meeting. If she's experienced male violence, for example,
Yeah, yeah,
then the idea that you would go to a meeting and start getting honest in a meeting, start trusting people, that's a very, very big ask.
it's a very
Um,
big ask, and particularly
mm,
when it's not unreasonable to assume that one of the men in your room is actually also recovering not only from their drug and alcohol use, but their previous unacceptable behaviour as well, of course.
totally. Yeah,
You
totally,
know,
totally. That wouldn't be at
and
all
you're
surprising, would it?
it wouldn't, would it? No, it wouldn't be at all.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Of course it wouldn't. No,
Mm.
no, no, absolutely. Yeah.